What if I told you that St Kilda were robbed of a premiership? You'd probably think that I was talking about this, or even this, or maybe him. But no, I'm talking about something completely different. Something that happened over 110 years ago. This is the story of the right of reply, the VFL's biggest flaw. The origins of this very rule date back to the very formative years of the VFL, in 1898. The 1898 system featured two sections, each of 4 teams, incorporating the then all 8 teams into the finals. The top team from each section would meet in a final, however the minor premier could challenge the winner of the final in a grand final. Essendon did this and created the first ever grand final, in which they would lose to Fitzroy, losing out on the chance to become back-to-back premiers, having won the previous year in 1897. The format would continue until 1901, when VFL introduced the first Argus system, removing the rule where the minor premier could challenge the winners of the final. However, the minor premiers from that year, Geelong, had a sook because they lost fair and square, and the VFL listened to them, introducing the first amended Argus system, allowing the team with the best win-loss record to challenge the winner of the finals. Notice how I said best win-loss record and not minor premiers? Well, that's because this new rule included wins and losses sustained in the finals, so therefore it was not always the minor premiers. However, from 1907 onwards, the right of reply did go to the minor premier. If this all sounds confusing to you, let me give you an example. Let's take the 2020 season, the last season when the minor premier did not win the major premiership. Port Adelaide finished first this season, and as we know, lost to Richmond in the preliminary final, who would ultimately go on to win the grand final. If we were using the amended Argus system, Richmond would have to face Port Adelaide the week after the grand final, and the winner of that game would become the premiers for 2020. It's stupid, really, considering Port Adelaide already lost to Richmond in the preliminary final. But let's go back to 1913, where St Kilda had just made their first ever grand final, against early VFL powerhouse Fitzroy. The Saints led by 3 goals at quarter time, but ended up down at half time by just 2 points. However, a strong second half would see the Saints win 10-10-70 to 6-9-45, and be crowned premiers for the first time ever. Well, that would be the case had Fitzroy not finished atop the ladder by 6 points, allowing them the right of reply, and thus a replay was in order. The two teams came back to the MCG 7 days later and would face off again, this time for the premiership, no matter who won. And Fitzroy came out looking like the better team from the get-go, keeping St Kilda to just 1 point at the first break. The Saints would have to wait until the third quarter to record their first goal. But it was at three-quarter time when something magical happened. Something switched in the Saints' players, with them getting the margin to within a point in the last, and only lost out to their own kicking, scoring 5 goals 13 for the game and losing by 13 points. Very St Kilda-like. And Fitzroy were crowned champions of the VFL as a result. The right of reply and Argus system as a whole came under a lot of criticism, especially for the reason that intentionally throwing the first week final match and challenging the eventual final winner would give the minor premiers an extra week of rest compared to the other team. The system was eventually replaced for the 1931 season with the double chance, initially only for the top 2 as there were only 4 teams in the finals back then. The double chance as we know it is still used today. Now, we know that Brownlows were retrospectively awarded to tied medalists when they replaced the count-back rule with shared medals. So my question is, why not do the same with the premierships, only instead hand over the 11 successfully challenged flags to the rightful winners? And I don't just say this because it would mean St Kilda finally had more than one flag. I say this for all the fans of all the teams who are wrongly robbed of their flags. And that's the end of today's video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. Please do make sure to like and subscribe, as I would really appreciate it and it really helps the channel a lot.